If you're a British Leyland fan and a fan of classic cinema who hasn't seen a Department of Transport short film called Nightcall, then you're in for a treat, because this is much more than a functional safety film. The copy I'm showing on YouTube is not the best quality available, and I'll be talking over it on occasion, so I recommend clicking on the link below and watching on the BFI website first, because Nightcall is definitely worth savouring. We start with a long tracking shot, which I think is a good sign this won't be a 5 or 10 minute film, perhaps something intended to be shown in cinema before the main feature.
He's dead. Apart from that, can't really see him. You'll have to cut him free.
We've got the fire brigade on the way.
How long will that be?
Take them a while. 20 miles from anywhere here.
I see. Well, there's not very much I can do with that lot over here. I'll be in the car. Oh, by the way, just the car. Don't touch him. He's not going anywhere.
You're about to see a princess and Marina pass for the second time. They must be rubberneckers. Doesn't that sound like Pink Floyd's Comfortably Numb, which actually came out later? Very atmospheric stuff so far. I love the way it hones in on that siren. So often in television there's too much filler, but in this film the pacing is perfectly suited to the storytelling.
What?
I said, may I come in?
Someone inviting themselves into your car is weird and disturbing, yet perfectly normal.
Hold on, huh? Let me introduce myself. I'm Peter Conway.
Oh, you do those motoring shows on the radio.
Oh, that's right.
Hasn't the motoring column in the paper? My wife's always telling me you've got to buy this car or the other after you've written about it. And by the way, I'm
Dr. Simmons.
Yes. Well, you won't find much to write about here tonight, I'm afraid.
An uncomfortable pause that almost becomes a pause that was never uncomfortable.
I'm not so sure.
Oh, you'd know, of course, but as far as I can see, it's just another poor fellow who's killed himself.
Yeah, but this one's different. Do you do much driving?
Oh, a fair amount, yes. Why?
Well, I do it all the time, especially on motorways. It's amazing what I've learned about drivers and the mistakes they make. One simple error and disaster. I mean, I've got to the point where I always watch, analyze other drivers. Sometimes I know they're going to make a mistake.
Yes, I know what you mean. I've seen some idiots who shouldn't be allowed out.
No, I mean good, safe drivers, good experienced drivers. They still make mistakes. I'm behind a car sometimes for miles. It happens on a motorway, and I start to analyze just how good someone is. I award them points, so much for overtaking procedures, so much for lane discipline, so on. Hunt for the perfect driver, you might say.
I'm afraid you missed him tonight.
Maybe.
I mean, do you know about him? Well, we do have time.
Well, about 8 weeks ago, I was going home from Birmingham. I'd done a broadcast the night before. I must have done the trip 100 times. Down Gravelly Hill, into the interchange, then down the M6. It's so easy. You're into the Midland Link system and through it before you know it. If you know your signs, blue for a motorway, green for other main roads and so on. No problem. Spaghetti Junction, they call it.
The Rover SD1 is so futuristic compared to most of what was on the road back then, and deservedly won European Car of the Year, albeit that we couldn't sell the rest of Europe left-hand drive models for a while because British Leyland had a toolmakers strike. That's the tragedy of British Leyland, that even their masterpieces were doomed.
The whole thing's controlled by closed-circuit television, so if anything goes wrong, they can reduce your speed, close lanes, all in a flash on those gantry signs. The trouble is, too many drivers ignore a signal until they see a reason for it. By then, it might be too late. It's worse on the Midland Link. Some drivers lose their concentration while they're wondering where they're going. Well, certainly I'd never seen a perfect driver candidate there before. And when I saw the speed restriction, I slowed down, but everyone else kept going. Except for one, the car in front. Of course, at this stage, I didn't think he was anything special. All right, so far he'd done everything perfectly. The slowing down for the first signal, the move to the right for the second, a divert arrow. I couldn't say for sure, but it seemed as though he looked into the mirror before signalling and making the move. All perfect textbook stuff, but not that unusual. Meantime, I was curious to see the cause of the restriction. I didn't think it'd be roadworks. Matrix signals are only used for fog and emergencies, or obstructions, accidents. This one looked like rear tyre trouble. The police had it all under control. It was only after we passed the incident that I started to take him seriously. He remembered to stay out of the left-hand lane all right, but what was really extraordinary was that he didn't suddenly zoom off. I'd say 99% of drivers would. After all, the incident was past, the road seemed clear, so why not? But you see, what they forget is that there could be some other trouble ahead. I mean, the speed and lane restrictions still apply until the final sign comes up, giving the all clear. Well, he didn't zoom off, and that made him different. And when he approached the no restriction sign, he even signalled correctly for the move back to the left, after the sign.
How to make the highway code riveting stuff.
After a while, I began totting up points. So far, 10 out of 10 for signalling, 10 out of 10 for obeying road signs, the same for separation distances.
You may be relieved to know that Stone's original green ginger wine, seen advertised on the lorry in this freeze frame, is still available for enjoyment in any weather, and according to Tesco.com was first produced in 1740 at the Finsbury Distillery in London. I can't shed much light on E.B. Taylor, the coach firm livery emblazoned on the rear of the vehicle ahead, except to say it appears to have been based in Yeovil, Somerset, and an echo of the firm still exists in the form of a 1935 single-decker dinky toy bus, available for the very modest sum of £3.97 on eBay.
The car itself was immaculate from behind, nothing dangling in the window or obstructing the back shelf. Even things like lane discipline, you know, moving back to the left after you've overtaken something. He was faultless. First to the middle, then to the left if it was clear. Well, frankly, after a while I began to wonder just who was driving. You see, I'd never seen anyone that good for that long. For maximum points, I had to overtake him anyway, and at the same time I could have a look at him. And that was when it happened. And that was it. I pulled out from behind the lorry in a bit of a hurry, I'm afraid. Not exactly perfect driving on my part, but I was so involved in watching that car. But he just vanished.
And he probably went up a slip road.
No, he didn't. There's no slip road there. I know that road like the back of my hand. Just vanished.
Or maybe you need your eyes testing.
It's a natural assumption. But wrong.
Well, there has to be some reason.
Yes, of course. But that was only the beginning.
You mean you saw him again?
Remember that big thunderstorm we had a few weeks ago on a Friday? I was going down to London with my wife for the weekend. The forecast said to expect rain, so we left early.
Very good.
On standard practice. No, but you should always check with the weatherman before you start a long journey. Maybe sunshine when you leave, but 150 miles further on, it's pouring. The key to safety in the wet must be good visibility. And your speed, of course. I'd already done the standard checks, you know, water, tires, oil. And in addition, I cleaned the windows, headlamps, topped up the screen washer bottle, just in case of any spray or grime.
Well prepared.
Yes. We hit the storm about 100 miles outside London. I put everything on, headlamps on dip, wipers on double speed, demister on boost. We didn't talk much. I never do when I'm driving, especially in those conditions. My wife doesn't mind. She's the same when she's driving. Well, to begin with, I was busy minding my own business, making sure I was a safe distance from whatever was in front. Very important in the wet, separation distances. I reckon to double the distance at least, especially if I'm behind a lorry. I mean, it doesn't have to be raining. Get a road that's still wet, and a lorry can throw up spray, any distance. Get too close, you're blind.
Darling, you never told me.
What?
Oh, he's writing for House and Gardens now.
Yeah, well, you should know.
I wonder how many viewers expect him to snap at his wife like that. It does add a layer of realism. It's almost as if the writer-director, Ferdinand Fairfax, is saying, I know this is about road safety, but I'm so much more than a jobbing documentary maker. And that's true. He did go on to direct television and film, but I think he may have been at his best when constrained in this manner.
It was the same car, but I'd missed seeing the driver the moment my wife spoke. Everything was perfect, just like before. The smoothness, the gradual move back to the left-hand lane. Perfect wet weather driving. But who on earth was driving? That was what I wanted to know now. I didn't even bother to tot up marks. It was pointless anyhow. I simply wanted to know who that driver was. I didn't want to overtake him. Last time I'd tried that, I'd lost him, and in any case, I was already going fast enough for the conditions. I just prayed he was going the same way as us. Maybe at the end of the motorway in London, I'd get a chance. In fact, it came sooner than that.
Time you had a break. How about a cup of tea?
No, I'm fine, really.
Well, I need to go to the loo.
Oh, all right, Alan, we'll pop in here.
Very amusing. This will not be the first time this character reminds me of Basil Fawlty.
This was it, I thought. I tried to get as close as I could. Whatever happened, I couldn't lose him now. couldn't believe it. But at least I'd seen something of him. Maybe I could spot the man inside. There it is, darling. I'll see you back there, huh?
Now, if that's not Basil Fawlty, I don't know what is. He's just checking the walls.
Peter, over here.
Better phone Tony. Tell him we'll be late. I had to get back to that car. I had to have a close look. Luckily, it was still there. I looked inside and out. It was immaculate. No stickers on the window, no rubbish anywhere. But nothing to suggest who drove it. And, of course, it was locked.
Peter! Peter! What are you doing in the rain?
Looking for a phone.
Out there, they're all in here.
Just looking for a phone, dear.
By the time I'd made the call, the car was gone. And I'd missed my chance to find out who drove it. Of course, I could have explained it all to my wife and hung on. But I didn't want to tell anyone. There was something about the car that was personal, private, just for me. I mean, why did he keep disappearing from me? Well, that's what it seemed like. I still hoped to see him again back on the motorway. I did see one car that I thought for a moment was him. No chance. The windows were all misted up, no visibility in any direction except straight ahead. A real hazard, more so in the wet. If he was careless about that, what about everything else? Brakes, tires. Get a tire that's even a bit worn in those conditions and it just can't eject water fast enough to keep a grip. Then anything can happen, even aquaplaning. Of course, a sensitive driver just goes slower anyway, and he can usually tell if there's any danger of aquaplaning. Steering gets lighter. I knew that. The Black Saloon knew that. But then, he was the perfect driver.
Perfect, but elusive.
Perfection always is. How good a driver are you?
Oh, me? Well, I've never had an accident. Not a bad one. Of course, the odds scrape, nothing.
Perfect?
Well, no. But what about this fellow of yours, your perfect driver? Obviously, you saw the number plates. Did you follow it up?
There wasn't any point.
How's that?
It was mine.
Yours? Your number plates? Well, they must have been false. Your own car?
No. No, you see, the first 2 times I saw him, once outside Birmingham and then once with my wife, I wasn't in my own car. I was driving test cars, but my own car was safely locked up in the garage at home. I checked that. And then the next time I saw him, the 3rd time, I was driving my own car anyway.
You saw him again?
Yes.
Well, when was that?
Tonight. That's why I'm here. I was on my way back from London. It was late. I felt a bit tired, so I decided to stop for a rest and a meal. Then I went over to the petrol pumps. Not just to fill up, I wanted the windscreen and headlamps cleaned. You know what it's like when there's a smear on your windscreen at night and car headlamps are coming towards you. Also, I had to give my eyes a couple of minutes to adjust for the dark of the motorway.
Fill her up, will you, please?
Anything else, sir?
Yes, would you just clean the windscreen and headlamps, please?
There's a touch of Americana about this. I love the way the windscreen ends up dirtier than before, albeit that I think this goes against character because I think he would not accept that.
That'll be a £5.
Same car, all right. Identical to my own. I knew that the moment I saw him. He hadn't been there before, just appeared over by the petrol pumps. But why? Something to do with me. I felt sure of that. Yet he didn't want me to talk to him. Just drove off. So what did he want? Did he just want me to follow, to watch, and then for what? So that he could vanish again? I didn't know. I caught up with him. He was there, waiting. Maybe he thought I didn't know about night driving. He'd tell me, show me, but I did know about motorway night driving. It's different. You have to be more alert. Distances, speeds can be deceptive. Everything, slowing down, signaling, needs greater anticipation. You have to watch your headlamps, make sure they don't shine through the rear window of the car in front and dazzle the driver. But I knew that. I knew about everything. Well, I decided to follow. Perfectly, like him. Smooth, gentle overtake, always staying bang in the center of the lane. No wandering. Past the traffic. Mirror. Signal. Move back to the middle. Pause, mirror, and signal again, and back to the left. Extra care all the way. I was doing it perfectly. And then I started to get tired. How much longer? I didn't understand it. Was it my imagination? I was getting tired. Should I keep following him, or should I turn off for home? I'd have to soon. I was getting too close to him. I backed off. I wondered what time it was. relief at missing the Mini was enormous. But I was furious with myself. I'd just made the simplest of errors. I'd taken my eyes off the road for a few seconds. It was then I noticed the black car had vanished. Then I saw the 50 miles an hour restriction come up on the matrix marker. Two miles later, 30. Finally, a double wicket. Left hand and middle lanes closed. It had to be an accident. The black car. So you see, that's why I'm here.
Yeah?
All ready now, sir. Just getting the door off.
Coming.
Tonight. That's why I'm here.
Did you know him, sir?
In a way. He was almost the perfect driver.
Well, I really enjoyed that, and I would have ordered another. For me, it effortlessly introduces important information about sensible driving without patronising the viewer, yet almost appealing to their vanity. You almost want to become the perfect driver of that black Granada. And on another level, it's a terrific piece of cinema with echoes of Steven Spielberg's thriller Duel and Tales of the Unexpected. And on top of that, it's wonderful nostalgia. That vintage futurism subliminally reminds you that the present is always in the past, and the future as well. Now, I did see the twist coming the first time I watched it, but it didn't really spoil it for me because the journey is as much fun as the destination. I guess the message to the viewer is there's no such thing as a perfect driver. You could also interpret it as perfect drivers wind up dead. So just relax and don't take the highway code too seriously.